Welcome back to the Renaissance, episode 214.
Oh, yeah.
Ray, this is an exciting episode. I got a lot of fun stuff to talk about in this episode, I got to say.
Good.
We're going to be talking about the Holy Lance.
Right. And not Lance Armstrong. Different Lance. But
I know that's what you call your dick, but we're not doing that either. It's
Hey, quit reading my diary. Anyway.
Hitler. I found a way to talk about Hitler.
There's always a way to bring that particular gentleman into any conversation. I think you'll find.
I always like to say what you like about Hitler, but at least he killed Hitler. I think I got that from Ricky Gervais.
Right.
At the end of our last episode, the Crusaders are in Antioch. They're surrounded by the Muslim army of Kerbogha, and their only hope now is the imminent arrival of the Emperor Alexius of Constantinople and his massive imperial army that is racing to their defense.
Yeah, or Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he's somewhere else, Tatooine, I think. So it's pretty much to Alexius.
Who is he tattooing? What tattoos is he putting on them? Himself?
No. If he
Baby
wants to,
Grogu? Is he tattooing Baby Grogu on people?
No, you cross your streams. He's getting a little yogas. I got one on my hip. I'll show it to you later. It's
yoga?
Really cute. Yeah. And if I twitch, it looks like it. Yoda. What did I say? Sorry, Yoda. It looks like he's dancing. Anyway, we'll go.
Are you
Yoda.
Are you quoting Van Halen lyrics there?
Maybe. I don't know that I am, but I could be.
Their last single that they did on their last album with David Lee Roth was called Tattoo. Not a bad track.
Right.
But yeah, the lyrics are something about I've got hulas on the back of my ankle, and she hulas when I walk. How is it? I got Elvis on my elbow when I flex. Elvis talks. I got hula girls on the back of my leg, and she hulas when I walk. There you go.
I like that. No, happy coincidence.
Yeah,
if I may.
Right.
Yeah. So
Swap
Alexis
meet
is
Sally,
our only hope.
Tramp stamp cat, mouse wife to mum shell in the time it took to get that new tattoo.
I'll have to listen to it.
Tattoo.
I would join in, but I don't. So help is kind of on the way. Kind of.
Yes, but then we said in the last episode that William, Bohemian's brother-in-law, escaped and jumped on a boat and sailed to Tarsus, where he catches up with Stephen of Blois, who had also escaped. And then they catch up to the emperor when he was at a place called Philomelium, now Achaia, in the middle of Turkey. Still quite a ways away from Antioch. And they have informed him that Kerbogha had reached Antioch and that they assumed the crusading army was probably already wiped out.
Right. They're probably all dead at this point. But again, and so Alexius knows that he needs to help, but at the same time, his generals, his advisor, every step that you get away from the capital, read your history books. Normally when a leader leaves the capital, people do things. People get up to all kinds of mischief. And not only that, but obviously the enemy armies around them. This just makes them very nervous. So Alexios on one hand wants to help. On the other hand, probably doesn't want to die. So he's conflicted, but he has to make a decision. He can't just stay there. He's either got to start to head back or he's got to finish his trip to Antioch.
And not only that, a guy called Peter Aliphas, who had been left behind by the Crusaders as the governor of Placentia, he leaves his post, goes to Alexius to report that another Turkish army is advancing to strike Alexius before he can reach Antioch.
So the threat's real.
So he has to make a decision about whether to keep going or to turn around and go home. If Antioch's already been destroyed, or if the Franks have been destroyed,
what's the point?
The Turks are going to continue their offensive. They're going to recapture lost territory, possibly advance all the way to Constantinople, have a crack at that.
Right.
As you say, if he keeps going, he's extending his communication lines, which are vulnerable then to Muslim attacks.
Right.
Even if he was an adventurer like the Crusaders were, if he was out for spoils and glory, it would be an incredibly risky move. But he's not. He is the ruler of one of the largest cities in the world, with people there who he has a duty to defend. And so he does summon his leadership council and asks them what they think, says, look, I think we need to go back. Bohemon's half-brother, Guy, who had been in the emperor's service for a long time, begged the emperor to march on in case they can get there in time to rescue the Crusaders. Yeah. And he was like, who's with me? And everyone else was like, just looking at their watches.
Look at constellation. Look at
So the imperial army of Alexius turns around and heads back home, abandoning the Crusaders to the Muslims.
Yeah. Now, in Alexius's defense, he does represent the white Jesus in the East. So kind of a big deal. He can't just, get willy-nilly. However, when word of this gets back to the Crusaders, who again are now, they went from owning the city to being trapped in the city. They're pissed as hell. They are using his name. They're cursing him out as much as they can. They're blaming him for being a coward. They're the ones who are defending God. They're the ones defending the faith in this with a capital F. Thank you very much. And he has turned around. No, they are the true Christians, which I kind of hope they are, because they're all about to die seemingly. But the point is, they are like, we owe this guy nothing because he's a jerk, and there's a good chance we're all going to die because of him. So fuck him and the horse he's riding on all the way back to his capital. So they're pissed, and they're also scared.
I love Willy-Nilly, by the way.
Willy-Nilly?
Yeah, he's got some great songs like, Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. Don't let them pick up guitars. Don't let them pick guitars and drive them old trucks. Let them be doctors and lawyers and such. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys.
You got to spit.
They'll never stay home, and they're always alone, even with someone they love. You know about Chrissy and I seeing Willy-Nilly in Vegas when we got married. Remember that story?
Vaguely. Was there a cowboy hat involved?
We were in Vegas.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We were in Vegas for a cigar conference that I was attending, and then it was a night. I think it was the night before we got married, but we were just hanging out at Caesar's Palace, and we were in a little bar where they had like a Rydom cowboy thing. What do you call those cows? Bucking bronco sort of.
Yep.
Cow
Bronco.
What do you call those things?
Was it electric or a real one? A rodeo?
Mechanical bull. Mechanical bull.
Yeah. Another name for my penis. Go ahead. You didn't ask.
And there was a Willie Nelson impersonator up on stage doing Willie Nelson songs. And that was cool. We were watching him, and then the real Willie Nelson walked in.
Oh my God.
With a woman on each arm.
Of course.
Got up on stage, and they hugged each other, him and the impersonator. They obviously knew each other. And then Willie Nelson sang a few duets with the Willie Nelson impersonator.
That's amazing.
They did some songs together, and there was like 6 people in this little fucking bar.
But they got to see it. We got
to see it. We were like, holy shit, that's Willie Nelson. And he's just singing these songs with this guy. Then he got off and left. It was fucking huge.
Your marriage was blessed.
Anywho.
Yes.
Oh, well, on the actual night of our wedding, we were walking past the club, and we saw Vanilla Ice doing a gig, and we could just hear the whole thing. So we just stood there and got a free Vanilla Ice gig. That was, I remember I started singing along to Ice Ice Baby, and there were these like 20-year-old kids looking at me like, oh man, how do you know this song?
I grew up on this shit.
I was alive in the late 80s, bitch.
That's right. From 1900.
Early 90s, whatever it was.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, when news that the emperor had turned around and fucked off back home reaches the Crusaders, they are going to be pretty unhappy about this. Now, they don't get that news for a while.
Right.
So they're still operating on the basis that he is coming. But when they do get it, as you can probably imagine, they were pretty fucking annoyed.
They were cross. Yes.
they saw themselves as the warriors of Christ.
Got it right here.
And they saw this as a betrayal of the faith.
Yes.
Now, I talked about the Great Schism before and how there was already some beef between the Latin Church and the Eastern Church, the Roman Church and the Church of Byzantium.
Yeah.
They already, as we have seen, didn't really trust the Greeks, and this just justified all of that, and Byzantium was never forgiven for betraying the Crusaders.
Exactly.
And of course, there's going to be little question of giving any territory to the emperor now that he has betrayed them.
Fuck the deal. Was the oath? Fuck that. He ain't getting shit from us. If we live.
Yeah.
If we live.
Now, Stephen of Blois is also going to get blamed for betraying them and for sort of convincing the emperor to turn around and go home.
Yeah.
Chroniclers at the time labeled him a great coward, and his story then got back to Europe. He had a leisurely trip home. When he gets home, his wife was furiously ashamed of him and would not give him any pussy until he agreed to go back to the East and atone for his sins.
These legs are closed.
But don't feel too bad for him because their son ends up as the King of England. So
not bad. Not
bad.
Not
it all
bad.
worked out long term.
Yeah. So he was an involuntary incel. Go ahead.
Yes. But for now, the Crusaders in Antioch don't know about any of this.
Right.
They still think that help is on the way.
Yes.
Hold on. Help is
on the way.
I'll be there as fast as I
can. Woo! God, we're going on the road.
Hold on. Tiny voice did say, somewhere deep inside me is a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in the wrong business. We should be singing podcast.
In my butthole. Meanwhile, Kerboga continues his assault on Antioch. On June 12th, he makes a sudden attack on one of the towers, nearly succeeds, saved only by the bravery of a handful of knights that are able to push them back.
Yeah.
And to mitigate such attacks in the future, Bohemond orders the burning of all of the houses and the streets near the walls in the city to enable the troops to maneuver more easily.
Well, I think you'll find, and science backs me up on this, the shortest point, the shortest line between 2 points is a straight line. And if there's a bunch of things that are in the way, you got to go around. It takes too much time. And you're right, they almost lost everything, but these knights did some manly shit and saved the day. You burn down all the houses, you clear all this stuff out of the way, and then you can just run straight to the problem. Is it crude? Yes, but this is Bohemond. As long as it's effective, he doesn't give two or even one fuck about it. It's whatever it takes, because that's the kind of military guy he is. Again, a lot of people might not have done that because if you think about it, he's burning down parts of his own city, or at least he's claimed it for himself. But for right now, that doesn't matter. He's got to be able to stay alive in order to claim the city.
Well, you can tell by the way he burns his streets. He's a modern man. No time to something. He's staying alive. But then, Ray...
Sorry. Yes.
A great Christian miracle occurs.
Thank Christ. Thank Christ.
I love this story so much. I get so much joy. I've told my mother this story. I've told Chrissy this story. And I'm about to tell all of you at home this story.
It warms me right here. Of course, it could be
stories just...
Indigestion.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
A miracle occurred which lifted the morale of the Crusaders.
Right.
On the 10th of June, 1098, a poorly dressed young man in his early 20s, named Peter Bartholomew,
good name,
approached the headquarters of Count Raymond of Toulouse and demanded an audience with him and Bishop Adhemar of Blois, the Pope's representative.
Right.
He had been on the crusade. He was a servant of a pilgrim named William, Lord of Cunlat.
Thank you. You got to be very careful with that word because you could go so wrong so fast. Cunlat. Cunlat.
Cunlat. He had his emblem on his shield was #DBAC.
Right.
Daddy be a Cunlat.
Don't be a Cunlat.
Don't be a Cunlat. Well, he was a Cunlat.
He was.
He was the Lord of Cunlat.
He was.
People used to say to him, "Oh, you are such a Cunlat." And he was like, "I know.
I'm the king. Right? The king of Cunlat."
Cunlat is a commune still today, a commune in France.
Wow.
They probably pronounce it in a fancy way, but it's probably Cunlat.
Yeah, but let's be honest.
It's Cunlat.
We know what we're saying.
But we know it's really Cunlat.
Yeah.
He was the Lord of Cunlat. And Peter Bartholomew, turns out, was a real Cunlat.
Yes.
So
yes.
He had a reputation
already
in the Crusader camp as being a slightly disreputable character.
He loved the pleasures of life. What's wrong with that?
He was interested in fucking and drinking and gambling and all the good things, eating.
All the good INGs. Yeah.
I mean, if you're a poor French pilgrim from Cunlat and you've gone with this army, you're going to be taking part in the plundering
where you can,
as much as you can.
You're going to get
it where you can.
You're going to get it where you
exactly. Now, Peter Bartholomew of Cunlat told this story, to Raymond of Toulouse and the Bishop Adhemar, where he claimed to have been tormented over several months by visions in which Saint Andrew and a beautiful man had appeared to him, and that they had revealed the location of a holy relic, the lance that had pierced the side of Jesus when he was on the cross.
That's amazing. One of the most holiest of relics. I mean, I don't know if this is going to help us not die in the next couple of minutes, but pretty cool so far. Yes.
Now, St. Andrew, no one knows more about Catholic saints than you, Ray. Tell everybody what you know about St. Andrew.
This is only going to take an hour. He was a fisherman. He was one of the 12 apostles. He had been following John the Baptist, but he certainly was always look for the bigger and better deal, the BBD. He sees Jesus, he hears him talking, he recognizes him as the Messiah. He introduces his brother Simon Peter to Jesus. They form a band. You know what I'm saying? Jesus and the 12 apostles. And so he's one of the big ones. I did not know that. I forgot about St. Andrew, but the point is he's one of the big ones, and now he is here in his new business as communicator in chief, and he's going, hey, you're down and you're out. Things are tough for you, but I want you to go talk to these two. I want you to talk to this priest. I want you to talk to this prince. And you tell I'm going to tell you where the Holy Lance is at. And if you've watched almost any Indiana Jones film, this is a source of power. You could still win this war. You just need this. You need this artifact. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Now,
it's funny you should mention that, because my first thought was, oh yeah, Indiana Jones. And then I was like, what film was the Spear of Destiny in? Turns out it wasn't in any of the Indiana Jones films. No. There was a comic book, Indiana Jones and the Spear of Destiny. The last film that they did a couple of years ago was The Dial of Destiny. It was about the Antikythera mechanism.
Right.
I only got about half an hour into that and turned it off.
Well, Holy Grail, Holy Spear. I mean, they're cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. When they make the next one, when they do a fully deep faked Harrison Ford, it'll probably be the Spear of Destiny.
I hope so.
So St. Andrew was the first disciple of Jesus. He's known as the first called.
Yes.
Because he was the guy who first went, there's something about you. I like the cut of your jib. And told his brother, Peter, that, hey, we should go follow this guy.
Get in on the ground floor.
I don't like where the John the Baptist thing's going. I see heads being removed from bodies with this guy. Let's
Not
go
good.
But he's particularly relevant to the Byzantine church because he supposedly founded the Christian church in Byzantium, later Constantinople, in the year 38 CE. He's recognized as the patron saint of Constantinople. And he also went to Scotland to play a little bit of golf.
Right.
He was there. He heard there was a golf course called St. Andrews in Scotland. He was like, well, fuck, I have to go and check that out.
It's
oh my
really
God,
nice.
Debbie, I just have to go play around. And he went, he enjoyed it so much.
Yes.
Now, speaking of Scotland,
yes,
Andrew is said to have been martyred by crucifixion in the city of Patras in Greece in the year 60 CE. Of course, there's no evidence for any of these stories. They're all just been handed down.
That gets in the way.
But according to the early texts that talk about this, like the Acts of Andrew,
right,
which Gregory of Tours talks about in the 6th century, Andrew was bound, not nailed to the crucifix, and it wasn't a cross like the Jesus cross. He asked that it get turned on. So it's like an X.
Yes.
Marks the spot.
The
cross.
X factor. Yeah.
The X factor.
Yeah.
It's called the Crux Decusata or the Saltire, the X-shaped cross, commonly known as the St. Andrew's cross now.
Oh.
Because he deemed himself unworthy to be crucified in the same way as Jesus. So instead of being nailed, he was bound, and instead of the cross being up, it was tipped to the side.
I'm not worthy.
And I just love this idea.
Right.
That the Roman centurions were taking requests. They were like,
here's a menu.
Hello.
Pick
How would you like to be crucified today, Mr. Andrew? It's your big day. You get to choose any cross shape you like.
Don't disappoint.
You can be bound. You can be nailed. We've got some pretty good glues.
We got some circles. Whatever.
We've got Velcro. We can Velcro you up in the cross.
It takes a little longer.
What color would you like your cross to be? Like the whole idea that you're getting crucified by the Romans and you go, oi, hey,
you're not doing it right.
Yeah, can you turn it on the side? And instead of now, they'd be like,
a little more.
Shut the fuck up. Somebody whip that bitch.
I can picture him like this. A little more, turn a little bit more. Okay, and hold. I mean, not exactly people pleasers, the Romans.
It's like the whole story. I talk about this a little bit in the film, but the story of Pontius Pilate that's in the Bible, where he wanted to let Jesus go, and the Jews were like, "No, kill him," and he's like, and he just sort of gives in to what the Jews want,
right? As
some of the scholars in my film said, a Roman governor is not giving into what the governed want. He's like,
especially the Jews. Exactly. Fuck you. Come on.
Fuck you. Yeah.
I'll put you up there. Shut your damn mouth.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Anyway. Yeah.
So the St. Andrew's cross, of course, is the national flag of Scotland, big white cross.
Oh, yeah.
And then it became part of the Union flag. And then consequently, it's part of the Australian flag. So we have the St. Andrew's cross as part of our flag.
Right.
Much to my disgust, but there you go. He also, St. Andrews, apparently took Christianity to Russia. He's considered the patron saint. Yeah, like
Scotland,
little
Greece,
known fact.
Russia.
Yeah.
That's a lot of distance.
He had a TARDIS. He can travel. There was this episode of Doctor Who. I don't think it survived the culling of the early tapes by the BBC, but the Doctor runs into St. Andrew.
He goes, "Oh, hey!"
And he was a companion for a while. He traveled around.
That makes sense, actually. That's the only way I can think of to describe his accomplishments.
Yeah,
nice.
Now, getting back to the Holy Lance,
right?
So in the modern era, there are 4 major relics claimed to be the holy relic or part of it. There's one in Rome, one in Vienna, one in Vagarshapat in Armenia.
Sure.
And one in Antioch.
Aha.
Now, tell me everything you know about the Holy Lance, Ray.
Ooh, the Holy Lance. I feel like I'm about to do superpowers. So anyway, so the Holy Lance, the Spear of Longinus, or the Spear of Destiny, I think we should all go with that one, is alleged to be the lance that pierced the side of Jesus as he hung on the cross. I'll give a moment to wipe for tears. The point is, the Roman soldier who went all stabby on JC supposedly later turned to Christianity. He converted. How could you not? I mean, I think you owe it to JC. If you stab him, you must convert. I think that's written down somewhere. Anyway, so this is mentioned, and I won't do this too much because this is your area of expertise. It is mentioned, in the Bible in John 19:34. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water. But everything else is made up after the Bible. So is that Apocrypha? I don't know. So I'll let you tell the story of why they stabbed him, because they wanted to make sure he was dead, if you want that. But like you said, there are 4 of them. And there's a lot of symbology in this. There's the one that we're talking about now, the Holy Lance that was found during the First Crusade. Spoiler, sorry about that. There's the one where the Holy Roman emperors made it a part of their imperial regalia and said it gave powers to those who were rulers who owned it. And then there is, of course, Napoleon and Hitler. I have a little bit on Hitler's, I won't say fascination, but he has certainly seen value in it from a propaganda. I don't know anything about Napoleon. Was Napoleon looking for the lance, or did he have ideas of what it may help him achieve? Because I'm trying to remember from your podcast.
Yeah. No, Napoleon didn't give a shit. He didn't believe in religion except as a tool to manipulate the people.
Exactly.
But he, like Hitler, when he conquered a place, took a bunch of their shit back home.
That's why you do it.
And it ended up as part of that.
Right.
The lance is, as you said, only mentioned in the Gospel of John. Now, for people that haven't watched my film recently or ever.
Shame on you.
There are 4 Gospels. The first 3, the earliest 3, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, known as the Synoptic Gospels. John stands by itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last of the 4, the last one to be written. Most scholars think probably in the early 1st century, 120 CE,
right,
something like that. And it stands alone because it's very different from the other 3. The other 3, Mark is probably written first. Matthew and Luke copy off of Mark. And then they also have another source that they both copy from that's known as the Q source. Right. And then they have a little bit of independent material each. But they all basically tell the same story. John's telling a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Or he makes up stuff and he changes things around.
Yeah.
The Synoptic Gospels don't mention the stabby at all.
Oh, they just kind of leave it out. Sorry.
John invents that. The Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels state that the Romans planned to break Jesus's legs,
mm-hmm.
which was a method of hastening death. If somebody's been on a cross for a couple of days and they're moaning and groaning, you're like, oh, I'm fucking sick of that.
And it's boring.
You break their legs,
right?
Causes a lot of blood loss and they die. But they were going to take Jesus down. It was the eve of the Sabbath, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown.
Right.
The followers of Jesus wanted to entomb him because of the Sabbath laws. But then they noticed he was already dead, so they didn't need to break his legs.
Right.
But John says, to make sure that he was dead, this Roman soldier stabbed him in the side. And Jesus didn't move, didn't go, or anything like that, so they figured he was dead. Hey, what's that? Come on, fucking cut it out.
Gunt?
So,
sorry.
As you say, John doesn't mention the name of the soldier, but later Christian tradition said he was called Longinus, so it's often called the Spear of Longinus or the Lance of Longinus, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, there's also later Christian tradition or an anti-Christian tradition that says that Caesar's mother, Mary, was fucked by a Roman centurion called Longinus, and that Jesus was his child. So the Virgin had sex with a Longinus. So Longinus is Roman for long penis.
Right.
They just brought it together. Long penis, longinus.
Longinus.
It's just a longinus as long penis.
And he made her happy, and that's the important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was not until like the 4th century, the Acts of Pilate, where the soldier was identified as a centurion called Longinus.
Right.
And for some reason, Christians started to believe that this had mystical, supernatural powers. The idea that it had Jesus's blood on it,
right?
I think, like the shroud of Turin that he was supposedly wrapped in,
not the foreskin,
or any part of his body. All of these religious relics, and we've talked about these before. The idea that his foreskin had supernatural powers.
Yes, mine does.
The idea was that if you had a part of the spear,
right,
you would be immortal.
Yes.
Or you would be victorious in battle. It is like the craziest batshit idea.
Yeah.
Even if you want to go down the route of thinking that Jesus wants to help you win the battle, he could just like wave his hands and say absolutum forinum, some Harry Potter thing, and you would win.
He can mass total. No. Yeah.
But if you have an old piece of a spear and you hold it aloft,
that went in him, right?
Somehow,
right,
that transfers magical powers to you and your army.
Right,
is so batshit crazy. But these people
they
believed
wanted
in this.
They wanted to.
Christian. Well, that's the thing. I was talking to Chrissy about this over dinner last night. People, simplistic, simple-minded people want to believe in things.
Yes.
And it's not just religion.
True.
They want to believe, if they're Democrats, they want to believe that Joe Biden is a good person.
Mm-hmm.
They want to believe that Hillary Clinton is a good person. If they're MAGA folks, they want to believe that Donald Trump has the best interests of America in mind and that he's not just trying to grift and make as much money as possible.
And be loved.
I had a
guy,
Kung Fu, who's an Australian Trumpist, MAGA guy. I hadn't seen him for a while. And he said, "Hey, so what do you think about all the stuff that Trump's doing?" And I was like, he's just a grifter. He's just trying to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. He goes, "I don't think Trump's interested in money. I don't think he's interested in making money. Like, didn't he give all of his income as president to charity last time?" I said, if he's not interested in money, why did he bilk $2 billion out of his followers with Trump coin and Melania coin? Yes. He was like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Where was I? Oh, yeah, people just want to believe. There's this thing that people have, this faith where they just want to believe in something. It makes us feel good to believe in something.
It takes the pressure off of us. I don't have to make all these decisions and live by the decisions. There's a higher power, whether it's Trump, whether it's God, there's something beyond me.
And I think the world is just complicated and confusing and it makes it easier to just believe that somebody knows what's going on. Somebody knows something. Somebody's looking out for us. Somebody's got a plan.
Exactly.
Because I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I just get up.
But someone out there does. Yeah.
I just try to survive. Yeah. It like puts things in place. Sorry, go ahead.
To live like I live, which is, I told you in the last episode about the report I saw about stuff under pyramids.
Right.
And it's funny when you go to the comments of the coverage of this in YouTube and TikTok, everyone's like, "This is fantastic. This is amazing. Thank you for sharing this."
Yes.
And there are some people like me in some of the comments. They're like, where's the link to the fucking paper?
Yeah.
Like, to be constantly skeptical about everything.
Yeah.
And then have to live with that constant skepticism and process it and look for evidence. And then when people say stupid shit to you, to go, "Oh, whoa, hold on a second." To be that guy at parties, that's always like, well.
Debbie Downer.
I was at a dinner party, last Saturday with some friends from Kung Fu. And somebody said, this friend of mine, this friend's an author. She's got a friend who's an author, and he writes historical fiction about Napoleon.
Mm.
the Napoleonic era. She said, yeah, my friend was writing these books about Napoleon. And he said the reason Napoleon's armies went into Europe was because they needed grain to feed the people because they were starving. And I was like, whoa. No.
Right.
That's not why Napoleon went to Europe. Napoleon armies went into Europe because they were defending France from constant attacks from the European. I'm that guy at parties, right? I'm always the guy. It doesn't matter what people are going. Well, Vladimir Putin's. Whoa. Slow down a second. It's exhausting to be that guy.
Right, but
everyone hates you,
right,
including your own spouse.
Right.
You're annoying to your children. Your children hate you. Your family hates you.
You're embarrassing me.
Yes. You're always the guy that goes, actually.
You should get a shirt that says, well, actually.
Yeah, I should.
But let me ask real quick. So when something about the pyramid comes along and then you try to find, the evidence that they were using, which is the entire basis of their argument, and you can't find it, does that save you from going, oh man, I'm so crushed, I'm so disappointed? You kind of just go, yeah, because I'm not going to get emotionally invested until I have more. Does it save you from highs and lows, if you will?
Yeah, like there's a switch in my brain that immediately goes off. It's the bullshit filter switch.
Right. I
saw the original TikTok, and the woman who was telling the story seemed credible.
Right.
And there was a lot of, like, the stuff that she was showing, there was, she behind her, she had cut the paper, an academic paper, and academic images of stuff and 3D representations
great,
and stuff.
I'm
so
sure.
it looked great.
Yeah.
But there's a switch in my brain. There's part of my brain that goes, oh, wow, that's fucking cool.
Right.
And like, who doesn't want there to be discoveries of shit under the pyramids?
More
that's
to it.
fucking cool as. Super cool shit.
Right.
It's like, I always say to people, if we get into conversations about whether or not aliens exist or whether or not Jesus exists, I'm like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I would love all this stuff to be true.
Yeah.
It's super cool shit.
Yeah.
I would love to live in paradise for eternity. I would love, not if there are Christians there because they're boring as shit, but if there were cool people in paradise for eternity,
right?
If I could hang out with Jimi Hendrix, with Chrissy, for eternity,
right? That's cool.
Even you know,
I appreciate that.
That'd be cool.
Once a week for
a couple of hours. Let's not go crazy. I would love for aliens to be real.
Absolutely. So many questions.
I would love to believe it all. I would love it if America was, a great country that was just trying to do great things and make the world a better place. I would love for all these stories to be true.
Absolutely.
I just don't have enough evidence to believe that any of these stories are true.
And history shows not so much on any of it.
Yeah.
So
I was having this conversation at Kung Fu the other day. There's a few of us left at Kung Fu. I'd been there for 3 hours. I was buggered, but there's a few of us hanging around talking to the Sifu, and we got talking about politics and contemporary stuff. And one of the guys there said, they were talking about you can't believe anything and you can't get your news from social media. And one of the guys goes, it's not like it was 50 years ago when you could trust the media. I was like, take
a knee. Well, actually,
professional historian here. By the way, I'm calling myself a professional historian now.
You should.
I used to call myself an amateur historian. I said, we get paid to talk about history.
We
are professionals.
Yes.
We talk about history. We are professional historians. Fuck beating around the bush.
Exactly.
I said, professional historian here. Trust me. You've always been lied to by the media. Always.
Yeah. Yes.
It's never been trustworthy.
And now and in the future.
Yeah.
They will be lying.
Every war that we've ever been involved in, we were told lies about why we were getting involved in it. Anyway, my point is, when the pyramid stuff comes up, the switch in my head goes, first little voice goes, oh, that's so cool. The second little voice goes, but it's too cool, right?
It's too cool. It's too cool.
It's too cool. It's too cool. You should probably look at the paper. I'm like, you're probably right.
Calm down.
I should probably, when I get a minute, I should probably look that up.
And then you get a minute.
As soon as I Google it, and the first link is just like YouTubes that are like conspiracy theory channels and fucking weirdo blogs and shit. I'm like, no,
here we go.
It's going to turn up. Now,
yeah,
I will say,
right,
that the claim is that the researchers who did this scanning did a recent event in Italy, and that it hasn't just come. It just hasn't come out yet officially.
Right.
But I've taken that with a grain of salt. Anywho, speaking grain of salt, Hitler.
Yes. Yes.
This is going to be a long episode. I apologize.
Yeah.
Should we cut it now? No, oh, fuck. I've got so much stuff on this Spear of Destiny thing, man.
Yeah. Well, let me just, we can do whatever, but comparing Hitler to Napoleon, a lot of the same thing. For Hitler was a lot of propaganda. When he was a young man in Vienna, which is where the most famous of the lances were, he was there from 1907 to 1913. And his father had died. His mother was sending him money because he was a spoiled little brat. No surprise there. He would go to the, he would go to the Hofburg Palace where it was at, big museum. And he would go there a lot because, again, he had nothing to do. And he would look at the lance and he's thinking, oh, that's cool or whatever. Now, many, many years later, he would write, one day I was looking at that and I saw my powerful future. It's like there was a connection between us. And again, but when you write something like that 20 years later, take it with a grain of salt. Now, so again, when he takes when Vienna is taken by the larger Germany on March 12th, 1938, one of the first things he does on that very day is he has the Holy Lance taken from there and taken back to Germany. It's going to be in Nuremberg. So again, it was one of his top priorities. But like Napoleon, it was propaganda because he could say. Because I think it was in the year 910, somewhere around the year 910, a German king had a piece of the lance, was in a battle, won, and supposedly from there, whoever's holding the lance will have victory. So that's kind of where that started from. But Heinrich Himmler, the man in charge of the SS, he's the one who went deep into the occult. For him, this shit was real. He probably got wood when the lance made it back to Germany. He had always been into the occult ever since a little kid. He was the one who wanted to tear down the Christian church and go back to Germanic ways of living. He wanted to prepare his people for the war between the humans and the subhumans, meaning everybody else. He's the one who organized the meeting of the final solution for Jews. He was, again, in charge of the SS. He had the death heads ring made for everybody in the SS. He would have blood ceremonies. He was deep into it. And when he would talk to Hitler about it, his leader would kind of roll his eyes. But again, it was a good propaganda thing. But then again, along comes Indiana Jones, and suddenly Hitler gets stamped with Himmler's enthusiasm. But again, it was nothing more than a propaganda piece for the Führer. But again, as far as the average person on the street back in 1933, 1940, if you said to them, Holy Spear, the first thing they would say is, whoever has it will be guaranteed victory, because it had already been around. That idea had already been around. So Hitler got out of it what he wanted.
Where did you get that story about Hitler and seeing it in the Hofburg Museum and getting excited about it?
God, I honestly don't know. A couple of biographies of Hitler that I read a couple of years ago. I'd have to look it up.
Because it's all bullshit.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So.
It's all.
Which part?
That story is bullshit.
That he said something about it?
So, here's the story.
Okay.
In 1973, a British writer called Trevor Ravenscroft, super fucking cool name.
I've read his book.
Wrote a book called The Spear of Destiny, the occult power behind the spear which pierced the side of Christ. It was a big hit.
Right.
He told the story about Hitler being a struggling artist in Vienna.
Right.
Being captivated by the tour guide's story of the spear when he's at the Hofburg Museum, becoming obsessed with it, etc., etc. Ravenscroft claimed that he had been told the story by a guy called Walter Stein, who was an Austrian anthroposophist and who was friends with Hitler in Vienna in that period. They were friends. And then Hitler had told him about this and the whole thing. He'd got it from Walter Stein.
Right.
Decades later, some skeptical motherfucker is researching all of this, finds out that Ravenscroft never met Walter Stein.
Oh, wow.
And then interviewed Ravenscroft, who admitted that he'd met Walter Stein through mystical meditation. So he had a vision that Walter Stein told him this story.
Was there a Ouija board anywhere nearby?
Yeah. Now, Walter Stein was a real guy. Anthroposophy is, or was, a new religious movement in the early 20th century. It was founded by Rudolf Steiner of the Steiner schools.
Right.
And it was this whole thing about, mystical worlds being real. And Walter Stein, went deep into this. In 1928, he wrote a book, The Ninth Century and the Holy Grail, which Ravenscroft probably read and then just made up his own thing about Hitler and the Lance and the whole deal.
Right.
But the sort of the modern connection of I think the connection between Hitler and the Holy Lance and that kind of stuff, it goes back to Parsifal. So the Parsifal or Parzival story, medieval High German romance by the poet Wolfram von Eschenbach, story about Parsifal's one of the Knights of the Holy Grail. Arthurian hero goes in search for the Holy Grail, fights the evil forces, etc., etc.
Right.
Richard Wagner then did an opera in 1882 based on that called Parsifal, where instead of it being the Holy Grail, it becomes the Holy Lance that plays a big role in it, and people get stabbed with it, and then people who hold it become immortal and this kind of stuff. It's a major role. Right. Hitler's a big fan of Wagner.
Yes.
And he did embrace this sort of idea of taking these high German myths of the pure-blooded Aryan people and wrap that into his sort of mythology about what the German people could be. Yeah. Yes, and Himmler took that and went deep with the whole occult side of it as well.
Right.
But this whole idea that Hitler was obsessed with the Holy Lance and that it would give him power and it's all bullshit and was all made up by this British science fiction writer.
That's hilarious.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ravenscroft. Bit like the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail books that came out in the 80s.
Right.
That then Dan Brown wrote his book sort of based on. But these authors wrote this whole series of non-fiction books, again, that claimed that, my battery's about to run out. Fuck. They claim that Jesus had a kid and the Holy Grail was actually the blood of the kid and the church was trying to chase him down. So that's the story of the Holy Lance. Now, as Ray spoiled earlier, this vision, we were talking about the vision that somebody had with St. Andrew that said that the lance was actually in Antioch.
Exactly.
And if the Crusaders found it, they would be able to defeat their Muslim enemies.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wait until the next episode to tell that story.